citation, works cited for that, and as long as you do that, you're not offending the copyright, and they won't come after you for that.
Yes.
And then it's just like fair usage, like using it in a textbook.
And it looks like we have liftoff as well, so let me re-roll this.
Let's
pick up right there. That's super interesting. I'll say on the album,
I'm glad to stop by. Take it to me, baby.
There's J Frog stuff later. I'll get free unfocused, get to the third part. Even don't be free. That was my favorite.
Yeah, I guess a good amount of that guidance comes from that ballpark.
Can you tell me who?
That's like the Foster.
Yeah.
Let it get lit.
Cincinnati's greatest funk spinner, Mr. Tobachuous himself.
Chicka.
Chicka, my brother, how you doing?
Tobot in the building.
Yeah,
Good, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on. As I've expressed to you, through the work that we've done, I have grown forever in love with your thumbprint on music and the way that you output things. Like, and we were just talking about, something that I think will come up a little bit later on, but let's start there with, you have a very unique ability to take in other folks' material and spin it through the Tobot and spit it back out in various realms of how transparent do you want this? Do you want it to smell like Tobot? Do you want it to look, it's like, how do you find out what your thumbprint is and then start to get out of the way of it?
I have had the luxury of working for a bunch of different people in a bunch of different genres. And the one constant I've found is that every song, no matter how good or how bad it is, the composer or composers have at least one thing about the song that is like a thread, is like the truth for the song. And it doesn't matter if I like the song or not. All I have to do is find what that thing is to them. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of the tool set is just a way that I kind of ping pong the track. It's like if you were watching a play and everything is dark on stage except for one spotlight. And I'm the person in the song that just takes the spotlight and just shows you where to focus on stage and what this trajectory is, basically. Mm. So once I find that, and what's weird for me, it might sound lofty to people, but to me the craziest thing is how fast that happens for me. It doesn't take very long for me to listen to a song and I just gravitate towards one thing about it. I'm like, oh, that's the thing that this person goes, fuck yeah, this song rocks, right? It's the reason that this week it's their favorite song, and you'll write another one next week, and I know what happens to the new one too, right? Yeah. So I try to just line right up with that, and most times I do a pretty good job of it. I don't bat 1,000, and there's a couple projects that I had to just remove myself from because it was obvious that my interpretation wasn't in line. Yeah. Or at least the way I was manifesting my interpretation of their vision wasn't appreciated.
But it's so interesting to have that conversation with someone like, hey, I found the thing that I think makes it special, and you don't agree it's that thing.
I usually don't even tell them that. I just kind of find it, and then in the back of my mind, it just reminds me. And every time I come across something like, there's 2 of these vocals. What should it be? And I just kind of refer back to that thread, and the thread answers it for me. I don't have to be creative at that point. I just refer to the emotional response that I had to the thing in the first place. Yeah. And then I just keep following that dragon. Yeah. Of the content. And if we don't, if things aren't meshing and they're like, no, that's not really what I want. And then we start talking about it. And then I say, well, I thought the thing about the song was this. And then, they obviously express that it's not. And then maybe we have, some discourse about trying to make the bridge between the two of them work. And then a couple of times I just have to bow out or just say, I don't, here's everything back.
Yeah, but that's a grown man's perspective too, of like, I'm not here to piss in your punch bowl about this. It's like, I tried to make this better. You told me I got farther away from this.
Exactly.
And for us to come to a conclusion on this is going to leave one of us unhappy. And there's
Right.
no reason to work on people's projects if it's ruining your life.
Exactly. Or theirs. You know, my whole goal is to make anything better. And if I'm not doing that, then I tend to think I do make things better. It's like,
Yeah. So that keenness on what is kind of like the central thread, the dragon, like the muse of the song, is that something you picked up on before you played?
that's an interesting question. No, I think it's something that I might have noticed in my appreciation for music. You know, as an early breakdance kid, skateboarding, roller skating, you know, being, and my dad was, you know, not a musician, but had a decent record collection, as most pops did back in the day. And my dad had a good range of stuff, you know. Humble Pie to The Clash is a good starting point, you know. And then some of the classic records, of course, Beatles stuff. He was maybe a little bit less rock and roll than my Led Zeppelin taste, but or at least hard rock. So I would say that I recognize that there was something about songs, and each song had a little something that was different. And once I started playing, you know, I didn't become a good drummer or decent DJ or engineer or producer without the other disciplines. Like, when I started mixing and taking on engineering and producing seriously, it immediately made me a better drummer and a better DJ. Like, I stopped playing drums for the most part, from behind the kit, and started playing from behind the desk, like a producer would want you to play.
Word.
Like, I don't have to show you, you know, it's like so many times drummers put things in places because they can, and it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, so I would my roles are usually dictated by the content of the lyric. The emotional contour of what the lyric is tells me whether or not I should be doing a drum roll.
When I think so many drummers have like we're driving the bus, but we're not in control of the full thing. Did it feel like you had found your place the moment you sat behind the desk and you controlled the full thing? You were the medium between band and listener at that point?
No, I just feel like it rounded out my communication skills in that lane. It made me understand better all the isolation of all the jobs in that production stream, that triangle, if you will, that pyramid of how we build music.
Yeah.
It allowed me to really understand how all the levels feed and interrelate to each other. So from a macro view, it all just makes much more sense, especially the complex interpersonal shit that people usually implode over. Like, the reason most good things don't survive isn't because the things aren't good. It's because the people can't figure out how to get along and keep doing it.
Yeah.
Like, that's usually the thing that fucks the band up.
And
I mean, and there's some tragedies and some other things that happen too, you know what I mean? But usually it's that those 3 or 4 dudes, or, you know, humans, no longer relate to each other on the same level, and the dynamic changes, and that's happened, fortunately and unfortunately, almost in every group I've been in.
yeah, well, I think it relates really well to what you're talking about. It's like we all start off, you know, when a moment's really good with the band, we're all looking at the same dragon that we're chasing, the thing that makes it special.
Exactly.
And the moment we start to divert and disagree about what that thing is, that's when you start to have your pride involved, your ego involved, your take involved. You know,
Right.
like so much of the business now is your points or what your split is on this. And it's like,
And it's funny how when you have a few people that write songs and then everyone wants to retain the individual credits, when it comes to which songs we play, people start to choose them over favoritism instead of saying which songs do the people respond most to. Which songs do we feel collectively the best about? And people want to play their songs because they wrote it.
yeah. Pitching ideas starts to become, evaluating yourself, not realizing that your place in all these is inherently valuable. It's like, but you're someone that has taken a back seat to the music and the muse in that it seems like in a very deep understanding of what you can do in the world. Like, as a teacher, you don't get any credits for what these kids are doing, even though you're directly feeding them the tools. As a producer, you don't get to be the guy that's in the front of the stage. As the DJ, you don't get to be the voice they recognize at the end of the day. What's that like to come to terms with your place in that aspect?
I've always been comfortable on stage, but I never really wanted to be the person that goes out like with your family and you get stopped by a bunch of people and they say hi to you and then you have to walk away and your family says, "Who is that?" And you say, "I have no idea." I never wanted that part of it. And I get a little bit of it. So that part of being a human, it makes me uncomfortable. Like, I don't, and sometimes in certain situations, I don't do well with compliments. Like, some of my good friends that know me are probably losing their minds laughing because they know me when I don't have filter and I'm speaking real candidly about stuff, and they know about my confidence level. I guess I'd put it that way.
Yeah.
And also, I realized, especially when I had kids, the first one will change you. I thought I was a really creative, I thought I was a really sympathetic and empathetic person. And once I recentered myself in the universe, I realized exactly how off kilter I really was. And, and that's literally 13 years ago. So, if we were having this conversation, then some of my responses would probably be a bit different. But I enjoy being around the artistic mind. I enjoy being, as far as students go, or lack of the credit, I learn from them too, right? People say that's kind of colloquial thing, but for me, it's just being in that space where almost anything is possible. I haven't really failed yet. So like the gray matter is all real fresh and agile.
Yeah.
Their souls and their emotions aren't, they haven't had those couple really bad outcomes that make you, that build the character, you know what I mean? That ultimately build the character. But being around that amount of optimism is refreshing for me, to say the least.
Yeah. I think there's something really specific in your line of education versus most lines of education. When someone gets stuck in academia, whether they're in mathematics or they're an architect or they're in business, they go from, I'm a student, I learn the most modern idea of what this is, and then by the time I'm teaching it, it's out of date. Versus in what you do, you provide what you know to the students, they come back and show you how they used it in the most modern sense of it, and you now stay on the cutting edge of it, and you stay so willing to incorporate, and this is how the modern listener takes it in and spits it back, and here you are to have that conversation again.
Music production and art in general, especially at the collegiate setting, is, it's quantified. And CCM is a, really organized, administrative, well-respected school that puts out high-quality kids from all over the world, which is one of the main reasons I was attracted. Just walking down the street and seeing or walking down the hallway and hearing this virtuoso, and you stick your head in, and it's this little 16-year-old looking kid from Asia that's murdering it. And it's just so okay, you walk out all right, so, that's going on next door.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go scratch records or something. What's the apples and oranges for that?
So is scratching still the place you go to be clear-minded? Just I find that in a live show setting, I don't think about shit. I just participate with what I got.
No, and drums are that for me.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's the most cathartic.
Oh, yeah. Because I literally can have the out-of-body experience playing drums, where it's an autopilot, and then you just kind of move up a little bit, and you look down at yourself, you go, oh, shit.
Look at him go.
Yeah. Way to go, little fella. Look at you, look what you've become. Scratching, the thing about scratching records is the difference is this to this is whack. Like literally, the accuracy with scratching. You know, people say, you know, DJing, especially with digital stuff now, the prerequisite for real technique and accuracy is the threshold is really, really low.
Yeah.
There's some really game-changing features that are now ubiquitous across that art form, which is a whole separate conversation. And I give two shits about analog versus digital, but I think both are awesome.
If you use them to your fullest ability.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I find that you get distracted by what the tools are and what you can do with the tools. And it's like, are you doing a goddamn thing with the tools? You know? As cool as Logic AI is, are you making great music with it? You know? I don't care what your board is. You lugged it in here. Make something special happen.
Is it an extension of your person? Everyone that is an instrumentalist knows what that means. Where you just pick the thing up and it's at your finger. You know, it's a part of you, so you know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I feel that way about turntables, but the accuracy that's required to do it is so intense. You know, you can see somebody sit down and play drums and say, "Yeah, that person is probably sweating." Right? And and no one's going, "Oh yeah, I'm surprised this guy's going to put his arms up. It's going to be huge." You know what I mean? But the concentration, calorie burn of something for me like DJing is the exact same. I'm sweaty as shit after 20 minutes of DJing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all. I haven't really moved anywhere. Now I probably dance more than a normal jackass. You know what I mean?
Depending on the fit as well. I mean, if you got a helmet on, there's only one way to rock. It's like put your neck at risk, brother.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Put on my Beavis and Butthead stance.
Dude, you got some fits in the day that really bring me a different level of respect for embracing the character.
Well, that's what Bootsy taught me. You know, he taught me a couple of things, but one of the first things he taught me is, you know, I didn't go out there to work for anything but to teach him Pro Tools the first day. And on the first day, he was like, I don't think I'm going to learn this. You just want to stay. And I was like, well, yeah, that sounds like fun. And I was kind of approaching the back end of my tenure with High Tech doing production and kind of artist development for him. So it worked out great in timing. And then eventually, you know, over the course of the first few years working with him, every now and then something would fall out of my pocket. You know, like he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you played drums like that." He's like, "Oh, you scratch records too? Is that you rapping? Did you write that?" Right? And so eventually, and I just pick it up real quick and say, "My bad, you weren't supposed to see that." And I waited for him to ask me to start doing these things on records.
Yeah.
Rather than me being like, you know, I do this. I'd let it drop out, or he'd come and say, "I didn't know you do that." Or when I did like Freak Bass's record, he's like, "I didn't know you played all those drums."
Is that a lesson you learned later in life, to keep your skill set somewhat reserved till someone gives you a door?
No. I've always taken advantage of the fact that I'm white. I have glasses. I can speak really concise. I have, you know, good diction. 6 years of fucking Latin. I can do. You know what I mean?
6 years of Latin, that's the real definition there.
My family was all doctors and lawyers, so if you know what I mean, it made all the sense in the world for a legal and, you know, medical background to have that.
A deep understanding.
Well, it's just, the history of, you know, the verbiage and whatnot. So, what I really got from Bootsy was, how to distinguish yourself from the thing that you sell. William Collins is a person. Bootsy is a fucking character. And if he gets lost in that, the world will suck you up and spit you out in a heartbeat. And there's many people that this happens to all the time. And this guy has survived. His character, that persona, has survived and thrived for how long?
And
it's one of the most enduring modern personas that exist.
I mean, the action figure is enough to tell you. It's just like, this is larger than life. And I had heard in, like, I think it was what's the Beavis and Butthead creator does the cartoons that
Mike Judge.
Mike Judge, Tales of the Tour Bus.
Yeah, that shit's hysterical.
Yeah, and he's like, Bootsy, once he put the outfit on, never took it off.
Right.
And hearing that is such a great reminder, like, you need to work on the character. You need to make the character great. You can't be that thing all the time. So you decide when it's a closed door.
Yeah, yeah. And there's not many times, I mean, when we work together, it's William. Now, if we have to do anything or go anywhere, that's Bootsy. I mean, he's, and I just think learning, there's two sides of it. One is just to don't buy all the shit you're selling. I think it's really important these days to really know part of it's a character. It's like,
Are you talking about bath salts? Are you questioning my side biz?
Aquaman knows he can't what's his name? Whatever the actor's name is, knows he can't jump in the water with gills, and you know what I mean? It's like he knows in his heart, but he's going to act that way.
Yeah.
He's going to act that way. And that's the front side of the coin. The back side of the coin is that so you cannot get caught up in it, You still maintain yourself, still have the important thing. Don't miss the opportunity for family. I won't be Tobot so much that I miss the opportunity to be my kid's biggest hero.
Yeah. But then also teaching your kids to be able to be the character that they want to be.
Yeah, like it's totally cool to dress up, you know, and which is another tangent is, stuff that, going into 8th grade girl with a lot of interesting things that are going on socially and in the educational environment and how we deal with sexuality and identification and stuff like that. And I just encourage, parents, let kids role play, man.
Yeah.
You can be with it. When we were kids, we acted like all kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
We used to do cowboys and Indians, dude. How terrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that had stereotypes that allowed people to feel comfortable. And it's like, the big question today is, does your identity feel right to you? Mm-hmm. And can you get other people to believe in that identity? Like, that's a really interesting question to the character. Like, would Bootsy be what he is in the public eye if he wasn't believable as that thing?
Right.
And what's it take to cross that threshold? Like, I'd imagine there's a real layer of intimacy that peels back. The first day you come in and sit down, and it's William, and it's not Bootsy anymore.
That's a funny question. I don't remember the first session where he, didn't have glasses and a hat on. I don't really remember the first time that happened.
Slippers and sweatpants.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like after shows and stuff, that's a whole different thing because that's like locker. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did that experience though feel familiar to what Freakbase had kind of learned from him? And this is more of a longtime friend.
Definitely. So Chris and I, Freakbase and I, grew up in the same music scenes, but never played together. He was playing, more funk stuff, and I was doing on one side more hybrid, rock stuff with Lazy Rocket and Section 8, kind of things. And then the other side was like pure hip hop, turntablism, which even though Chris was into like drum machine beat stuff and was a big hip hop head himself, he's playing in kind of the funk. So we didn't cross too many paths too often then. But right after I started working with Bootsy, Charles was Freak's drummer for a while, and Charles knew what I was up to, and he recommended me. And then Bootsy said, "Oh yeah, you get Tobe to do because I think Freak wanted Bootsy to do his next follow-up record, and I think Bootsy was busy and encouraging him and I to get together. And that's when we did Junkyard Waltz. And I cut all that at the Animal Cracker studio.
At the library?
No, this was after we moved out of my mom's. We were in the heyday of doing Top Cat, so this would have been like 2006, something like that, 7. Then I did like 3 records with Chris, I think, after that. Or two records for his band, and then he and I did a solo record. That's what it was.
I listened to the solo record the other day. That shit bumps.
Freakbot.
Yeah.
That was a totally organic result of the band, Chip, Sly, me, and Freak going out, and Chip would take a break because he's a beast playing drums, so he'd take a break halfway through a 3-hour set. Go figure. And then Tim would take a break, and then me and Freak just started doing turntables and bass guitar. So I just play some crazy beats, and he just started slapping over top, used loop pedal, and then he started bringing out, the Geddy Lee foot pedals and was doing low synth stuff, slapping, looping, and then had a chaos pad and some other stuff, and people were really digging this little half-hour detour that we were doing in the middle of the Freak Bass band show.
Yeah, what was the name of that band though? Was that Freak Bass's main project? Was Slide? Okay.
Yeah, it was Freak Bass. Yeah, the band proper, and there was a couple different configurations of players. John Gentry played for a little while too.
Hard.
Me and John had a bunch of fun together.
I got a yappy birthday for my man John Gentry yesterday. I was like, I look forward to that shit every year.
He's a good dude. Me and him had a bunch of fun together. And he's a phenomenal player. He's a great drummer too. Dude, he's funky all around. He's
a weird musical mind.
Yeah,
I mean, like you watch how most guys approach a 7-string, and he reminds me much more of God. What's the guy who played on D'Angelo's record? Is it Charles? I'm spacing his name, but it's one of the guys.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking Jamiroquai's dude. Paul Turner. No. I can't think of it.
But still, when guys use it as a guitar and bass combination rather than using it as an extended guitar,
right?
It's like that's when it really starts to be like how are you splitting your dome like this?
Yeah,
where does this thing fuse into one person with one heart?
It's psychotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's built crazy. John's built crazy.
Indeed, he is. So as you started to see this line with Freak Bass of here's the character, here's Chris. And how do you help Chris find that character and be more confident in that?
Well, he was on it. He had learned all of that character and show stuff from Bootsy. So basically, the way it happened for me is Bootsy's like, yeah, because when I first started working with him, this was 2002. So I've been with Bootsy since 2002.
That's wild.
22 plus years now. So when I showed up, I was Tobe Casual T in the Animal Crackers. And he immediately went on whatever it was then. It must have been like mp3.com or some shit, right? Whatever the...
What a name, dude. mp3.com, sell that shit.
Oh, they did. They absolutely did. And he came back, early pioneer, for him to go internet digging. He found somebody who was also a drummer and a DJ named Casualty. And he said, and I was like, my first thing is, I was like, oh, dude's, listen to it. It's like, oh, he's whack. And Boots was like, it doesn't even matter. Your name has to be so unique and so identifiable that no one would ever pick it.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh, okay. And as we spoke about Latin, Tobe is my nickname, Tobe.
Yeah.
My real name is Tobias. And one of my uncles, as a joke, would always call me Botias. And of course, one of our intimate conversations relating, some of our deeply held secrets and phobias, I was telling Bootsy this, and he lost it. Of course, thought it was hysterical. And immediately that night, just the whole Latin thing kicked, and I was like, Tobot. And it's pound drum too. It looks awesome as a short, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, that's it. And next day back to work, I was like, hey, I found my, my new handle. He was like, oh yeah. I told him, he's like, that's it. You're right. Done.
Dude, what an amazing moment in time where it's like there's a page turn when those kind of things happen.
Yeah.
Like I had a weird interaction with trying to find a stage name of writing down 100 names and crossing them off till something felt comfortable.
Yep.
But the question of would anyone else take that name? Is it just a good name or is it you?
Right.
And there's a lot of shit to go through after the fact of making sure that is you, learning to wear it, learning to be it.
Right.
So once you had found that, did your character start to divulge with how you dress, how you'd sound, or was that already there?
being exposed to Bootsy and seeing how crazy he would dress up, and I went and did a couple shows. Even the first ones, I wasn't even performing. I was like just technical or something, or just helping. I was like spiritual, he would just want me to go to be there because I was like good peoples to hang with, and if shit hit the fan, he knew he could send me out on a task that I could probably handle 3/4 of the things that might come up.
Yeah.
So seeing him in that character and put all of that on, and then going to play with Freak, and then him doing it, and him, me feeling like, well, damn, if he's going to be that fucking crazy, I can be crazy. Don't, you know what I'm saying?
Don't tempt me, dog.
Yeah. Let's, if you want to go at, because I've always been a little competitive.
Yeah.
So that's when, Freak and I just started going, just started kind of going at it and just having fun.
Yeah.
And, once Bootsy let me dig through his collections, a bunch of those outfits are rubber band shit that he let me take, so.
That's the coolest affirmation there is.
Oh, absolutely.
To open up the Funkadelic, closet say like,
yeah. I'm like, man. He's like, yeah, you take one. Yeah, Bubba.
Tries to put a rubber nose on. He's like, no, you ain't doing that too.
No, it's Cat.
We don't need 2 elephants in the room, man.
Yeah. Rest in peace for Cat. But yeah, so that's kind of that's how playing all those characters came about. And then we started doing videos and having fun. And then it was more like Beastie Boys Sabotage, just opportunity to fuck just to have fun.
Yeah.
It's like you work real hard, especially with some of those gigs, and it's so much prep time and shit, and it's they roll cameras for 4 hours, and it's just like, okay, fuck, let's just be crazy.
Yeah. Well, and what a great point to make though, where it's like, hey, do your dirty work, set everything up so that it's like, okay, I've clocked in for the day, now I'm clocking out, and this is full permission just to goof.
Yes.
It's like, because sometimes when you make putting on the outfit and getting into the character part of the job, that's when you start to look fickle. You don't look sincere.
Yeah, right.
And I follow.
You look like you're wearing something.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And if you look at the great example of what Bootsy does, it's like he can walk into any black tie event, wearing his Bootsy-ism, and it doesn't look like he's underdressed or overdressed for the occasion. It's like, that's Bootsy fucking Collins,
right.
Okay?
Right.
And there's an aura to that.
Yeah.
And
it's like, what a doctor looks like because they wear the clothes and they got a stethoscope.
Dude, that's brilliant. You know what a doctor looks like. So are you going to be the doctor of the thing that you do? Are you going to make this trademarkable? So,
a shout out to Piacon because he always gave me he always thought I was like the demented scientist. He like kind of a Dr. Detroit or just some weird lab. He always wanted me to rock like a doctor's coat or like white lab thing when we do shows.
That's rad. Sorry. So, is it 2021 or 2022? There's this moment in time where Bootsy, and actually, let me reserve that for you in general. Seem to live your life with respect for a level of depth. I'm living on this plane where I'm creative, I'm honest, I'm not taking your bullshit, I don't have time for it. It's like you've checked yourself into a style of life that feels purposeful for you, and because of that, you're more in tune with your creative being. Is that an effort you make every day, or is that just what you've grown to be, the only thing you got room for?
No, that is the fight. That's my boulder to push uphill every day.
You're good at it. Okay, and you inspire others to do the same thing because it's a heavy rock.
It feels good. It feels good to hear you say that because I do appreciate and I've seen the trajectory that you're on, which is commendable. And there's lots of great people in this community that are doing and have done great work, and I'm fortunate to be a part of some of them and maybe some more in the future. I like making things. I like making things better. I found in some of the jobs, some of the things that are asked of me, the result isn't for me to put my fingerprint on it. You asked earlier about, how do I avoid the thumbprint? I realize some of the best editing isn't noticed. No one comes up and tells you, man, that was fucking seamless, because they didn't notice it.
Yeah, exactly. It was seamless. Duh.
It's a thankless, you know you've done a good job if no one even mentions you. So there's an attribute somewhere, there's a balance about being transparent when I try to collaborate and work with other people. And most of the times it's more fun to do it with other people than do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm much more efficient when I'm by myself. Like, I fly through things because I don't need to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My brain is I've already made the calculations. I'm already clicking.
Yeah.
By the time I would be turning to spin and ask someone else, their opinion of the thing or whatnot. Which is why from time to time I do a solo record where it's just a collection of crazy shit that I've been doing by myself. And that's how I stay sane. Sometimes I'm playing drums, sometimes I'm scratching, sometimes I'm doing both, sometimes I'm singing, sometimes I'm rapping.
Yeah.
Probably in the future, more of them will include some pioneering works from my kids, because we did a bunch of crazy shit during the pandemic.
Dude,
when we were all home, and I was just like, what do you guys want? It's like, so we got unicorn, we got flying kangaroos, we got flamingos, you know what I mean? We got songs about all kind of crazy shit, all EDM, crazy scratch stuff. But
as someone that's looking at that chapter of life coming up, and I got nephews and nieces. I don't got kids, but I know that's on the horizon. Uh-huh. It's crazy the plane of living that you get access to again by realizing how bordered in you are by life and its expectations and what you think you can think, Mm-hmm. And then you reopened, how good is ice cream on a hot day? What am I willing to do for that shit? How weird can I get with this hypothetical, you think you're out there until you hear a kid talk and you're like, I ain't living, am I?
Yeah, right.
And for that to be your own genetic makeup, to see yourself in that person.
Reminded, reflected.
Yes, that has to be the ultimate, like, hey man, you got a new fridge and it's full of things to sip from.
Something about me being a complete, the stoner isolationist, because that's what it took, early experimentation with drugs is how you came out with turntablism, right? We couldn't even watch a VHS tape back in the day. You just heard it, and I saw it one time on TV. It's like, man, what is that sound? And we'd go back to Connecticut every summer, and at night, I could get all the radio stations from Long Island, and I would just record cassette after cassette after cassette. So I had fucking shoeboxes full of live, and this was like the early mid 80s. This is like the Roxanne Shante when it was like soap opera on radio live, and I'm like listening to all this stuff like, holy shit. Then I came back to Cincy and was, found some radio stations here to kind of catch that vibe with, and it just sent me on a trajectory. It's with some of the early recordings was just those cassettes, and I was like, wow, this is rad. I remember the first song that I had, we were talking about that visceral thing, that thread for songs, right? Like, you asked, had I always found it? Was I always aware of it? I was always aware of it, but I didn't put my finger on it. I remember the first time I heard a song that I just went, this is crazy, right? It was the Benny and the Jets 45. And it just had that lush, chorusy flange over everything that just kind of set, and it's like, in hindsight, it just sounds like mushrooms or whippets, you know what I mean? It's like doing, but I remember hearing that, and my mom, she remembers too, I played that shit over and over and over and over and over again. So I was like 4 or 5 years old, and that was like, I was starting to become a DJ.
Yeah.
Just pulling it back. And they're like, "Don't, you're gonna ruin it." I was like, "Oh," and then I realized if you do that, you do ruin it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Okay, so you gotta be really careful when you do it."
So you lose your first record, you lose your first passes.
Like one time my dad came home and then I'm actually scratching him. He's like, "What the what are you doing?" And I have to explain. I said, "No, I'm not moving the needle, against the groove. I'm just selectively bringing." He's like, "Oh,
yeah,
oh," and support, I got mass support from my mom and my dad to this day. And I remember my dad not totally digging, like totally understanding it, but being willing. And the next thing I know, he's like got a subscription to Rolling Stone. He's like, yeah, man, I read about this guy, Chucky D, with the Public Enemas, and
Jesus God, dude.
And he's like, I really like his, the message and the content, and the stuff is pretty hardcore. Like the tracks are really, and he got it. Like he got it. He got not only the aggressive side of the music and its kind of recycled nature, which has always been really interesting to me about hip hop, but he totally understood the message and the mentality of Chuck D. My dad was a delegate for Jesse Jackson.
That is wild. That's a wild
and
place
he's been in and
world.
out of politics only in the last 20 or 30 years, and before that he worked for EPA and NIOSH and worked for a bunch of union people, did like Molders Union, Allied Molders Union stuff, and horse heads in the...
Yeah, it's some serious shit, man.
Especially in the 80s, the union thing was kind of gnarly,
More than gnarly, it was the hand that was forcing change,
right,
and
right.
it's weird to see how that actually plays out in the day-to-day of people's lives. And much more than just like the legal mind, like you are the mouth for the hand, and you need to make up for what is going on in the actionables of this.
Right. You got to cover all bases. I remember going out to eat, and for whatever the season was, Coors Brewery, they were the shithole company that the unions were going after. So we go into the restaurant, and the guy's like offering my dad beers. Like, we got da-da-da. And he says, yeah, we got Coors. My dad says, you got Coors? That shit's asbestos filtered. That'll fucking kill you. And I remember for a little while after that, I was like, God, what is wrong with these people that they would do that to the beer? And then it wasn't until I got a little older I realized, like, oh, my dad was just he was
just ragging on him.
Yeah, like
he was just playing the game as one would, and dude, an illegal mind is, you're directly affected by the actions versus the verbiage of what your parents use. Like the language and what they do is very different. If you have parents that are really good at pairing their actions and what they tell you, like that's a godsend.
Yeah.
I always tell folks that in the situation that I've come from, where it's very similar, but my parents did not understand this in the slightest, but they said, if we're going, we're going. Get in the back. We're doing this. But
if you're going to do it, then you better do it as hard.
Yeah, exactly. There's no option of failure here. And I've told folks my entire life, like, the greatest thing I could do is reciprocate a childhood and an upbringing that propelled me into what I'm doing now, but also to make the most of what I'm still doing. Like, there's no side mission here. It's part of the mission to keep going and bring it with you.
Yeah, right. Right.
But there's a really tough thing there where when they're going into uncharted territory, their actions need to meet their words, and you need to learn how to do that yourself as a person.
Yeah.
And in so much of the unspoken actions of what you do in this, like it's really hard to be eloquent about the art in the way that you are, but you are violently eloquent in the art that you do because you are a lawyer's child.
Well, my dad never went to college. My mom went to IU. They divorced when I was 5 or so. Both of my grandfathers on both sides were surgeons, basically. They were with their own practices. And I'm the oldest male on both sides. So we'll just...
Under pressure.
Put that there and then push it all over here somewhere. And then we get back to... When I say I want to do music, my mom was like, okay, well, do it in the basement. And we played fucking loud rock and roll underneath her. My mom worked third shift at University Hospital, spinning blood and urinalysis machines, right? So I was wide open as a kid, literally.
Yeah.
Like literally. So I had no excuses to not take it seriously and put all of my energy into it. And, when I was younger, I grew up, freestyle bike kid, skateboarding. Soccer was my big thing. I was pretty good at playing soccer. Wasn't really big enough. They wanted me to put on weight. And it was funny. My kid I grew up with, his dad was the head coach at UC. So I was like, yeah. He's like, you're going to UC? Oh, that's awesome. Can't wait to have you. And I was like, oh, I want to play drums, though. And I was like, I already knew I couldn't do 3. It's like alternate 3 and 2 games a week, soccer plus practice, then rehearsals with the band, and then play shows on the weekend. Because I started playing out in 11th grade in high school, like playing at Sudsy's and shit in like the bars down in Clifton.
Yeah.
And I quickly realized that you can't, it's not burning the candle at both ends. That's microwaving an entire fucking birthday pack of them, So I was forced to make a couple of decisions. And luckily, when I got into music, drums, turntables, and kind of engineering and production, and then soon after teaching, right? So for me, it's like, I don't care if I'm your teacher, the assistant, the engineer, the producer, the writer, whatever. I just want to be in the studio. I don't care what hat I have on. I'm the best version of me. I'm the most content human that I can be when I'm in that environment.
Yeah. Do you think that's a little bit of a disposition to need to feel like you're working in the same caliber, in the same hours that you were growing up around?
With the same dedication.
Yeah, exactly. Like a surgeon would.
And I've literally, my mom is probably laughing, so is my wife. I would say, I don't know when I'm going to be done working. It's hard. I can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah, checking out's a weird thing.
The song, it's either done or it's not done. We've either finished the recording and it's right, or we haven't and it's wrong. These are the two outcomes. So it's for me, it was really akin to, well, you either get the person stabilized and out of critical condition, or you're still there working until they die. So for me, like I guess it made it excusable to have some of the real focus towards my work responsibility.
Yeah.
And having my wife at home with kids now, I can only do that knowing that I have that back line, which I know from experience how hard it is to do it as one parent. So I'm in the most infinite amount of sincerity in that, like, I know I can do this because I have that at home taking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's emotional, but it's the truth about how I come to terms with managing that amount of commitment, and then being able to just turn it off and say no, and say, yeah, it was really fun to go and play in front of 20,000 people with Bootsy Collins at Fuji Rocks Festival in fucking Tokyo. But if the business wasn't right and I get home and my kid is looking at me like she doesn't recognize me, I'm going to have to make the hard decision. And I did.
Man, there's moments in time where you need to be very ready for the universe or a person or something to speak something into you.
There's 3 angles. I know exactly what you're talking about, Matt. Tell me this. There's 3 angles. You have to be good at it, right? You have to be. It's like having a ticket on a train, but you don't know the schedule. You got to be packed. You got to be on the platform, and you got to have a ticket. And if you don't have all those 3 things, luck will miss you. And that means preparation and being lucky at the same time, and being fucking good. If you're prepared, you're good, and then when luck comes, you can get on the train. But I found you really have to have all 3 of those things to get traction. Or you can go buy bots and do the algorithm thing and fake the likes, which to me is really crazy right now about music.
Yeah.
It kind of irks me to an nth degree, and I know it makes me kind of dinosaurish in a way. And they're like, well, just get on. And I was like, oh, dude.
I think it really relates to what you just said, though. It's like, okay, we're all looking for affirmation of why was this worth it. More kids than ever, with the infinite amount of tools sitting in your computer, are afraid to start and afraid to finish. And getting over those fears is crazy. But at the end of the day, you need to figure out, are they living or are you presenting a corpse to the world that you aren't proud of?
Right.
And would you be proud of that corpse if people told you it was great? You know, because you're the only one that has to reconcile, did the art make it for me, and now can I share it with other people? You know, Jacob Collier is this beautiful voice in the world of
he's a
music.
beast.
I saw him last
a bunch
night.
of things too. Did you go?
Yeah, he blew my mind. He did Bridge Over Troubled Water on the vocoder, and this asshole behind me tried to harmonize every bit of it. And I told my wife, I was like, we're moving, because everyone in here wants to be that guy without doing none of the work, okay? Myself included, but I'm not going to listen to this shit for a second.
Yeah, right.
But there was a great discussion between him and Rick Rubin saying, who do you make it for? And Rick says you make it just for you, and he says you make it for you and the audience. It's like we're all living that great balance, as my buddy Ed O'Donnell says, between being the product and being the person making the product. Like, are you proud of your cooking? Are you willing to eat some of it but still share what you really got to give here?
Yeah, Rick Rubin has always been a major influence in me personally. Him and Chris Lord-Alge, who was, when I was 18 or 19, we had one of our first big production deals. Robbie Neville signed my rock band. I wasn't even old enough to drive the rental car in California, right? But we go out there and we tracked a bunch of stuff. And, you know, Chris Lord-Alge is massively, even his brother is successful now. Back then, you know, they were doing everything. And he mixed 3 of our songs. So we go out into the studio. Each song was charged $3,000 per song, and I swear they got them done in 3 hours apiece. And he's like, why don't you guys just go upstairs, you know, play Xbox, smoke weed, a bunch of snot-nosed little kids and shit, and we'll call you to come down and listen to the mixes. And we came down after the first song, and he sat down and he played them, and I just went, holy shit. I was like, that's us? Like, damn, my drums sound good as fuck. And that night, after they finished the other 3 songs that night, and we're back at the hotel, and it just kind of dawned on me. It was like, all right, so dude just made $9,000. And I mean, we owe it to our investor who signed us. It's a production deal that we were working on with Robbie Neville, and he was going to get us signed to Warner Chappell, which we imploded. And I'm in the back of my mind going, well, we're going to have to pay that back. I'm kind of in my mind just going, I'm not like asking for itemized shit, but I know that we're not just getting gifted all these things. Mm-hmm. It's not how business works.
Yeah. Well, it's how the industry works, and people don't realize that signing bonus is not a bonus.
No,
it's a loan.
It's a forwarded advance that's going to be recouped first out of your ass. So all that's going through my mind, and then I'm thinking, but I feel this ecstatic about what I just witnessed and how our music sounds now. And that's when it just hit me as like, I could do that for a living. That feeling that this interaction, this business transaction that I'm only a part of on this side is like, I like that. I could probably do that. And at that point, I was like, I started taking my engineering and production stuff, not just to make my music, but I started to entertain the idea of doing it for other people. And I'd ran a studio and done stuff, but not been real serious about it. Like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking do that.
Yeah. Well, as someone that's come to you for these services, it's really interesting I spent the entire pandemic working on 4 songs down here, learning what I could do and what I didn't need to do, and what was going to be the necessary aspects of this. And I'm hitting you up with questions about how get these things to you. And you send out a song you think is 98% done, and I just need that last 2%. And then you send it back, and it turns out I was at 75% done. but that's the magic, and that's how much do you ask for the thumbprint for the transparency of it. You know, I had other friends that had come down here, and I said, here's the project at the end. We can either have us take it what we think is 2% further, or we can send it to somebody that's going to say, here's another 30%.
Right. Here's redefining what the potential of the song actually is.
Yes.
Proximity can be the biggest hindrance for any artist. And especially one of the reasons people traditionally outsource or differentiate the production level from recording to mixing to mastering isn't because one person can't do it all. It's because at what point is it less beneficial to have another qualified perspective? At what point does it serve you less to listen to the song one more time?
That's a really heavy question.
And there's no absolute answer, but I can tell you, if you ask yourself that, you will listen one more time, right? And if you have somebody that you can use and soundboard it and truly value their opinion and vantage point about any piece of art, if you can share that with people and take their input and angle back, your thing will become better. It almost always does.
Yeah. Well, and I think the most valuable thing that you can get is the first listens. Getting someone's untainted opinion of it,
yeah.
Looking at what the package is. It's like when you go to pick up the cake you ordered, does it look amazing or does it look kind of fucked?
Right.
And sending it to someone for the first listen who has the ability to go another round of distance with it is an incredible ability that only the microcosm that you live in and the world of networking that you facilitated will decide how far that can go. And the world's a whole lot easier to access now. You got to be bold in who you reach out to for these things.
They say great minds think alike, and I constantly remind folks, so do the broken ones.
Whoa.
So, the company you keep is super, super important. And it's not just like gravity, like good rubs off. It's like osmosis from rad people. It's, being able to have the honest interactions with them and then appreciate and value their art, their skill set, and know that, it's always going to be bettered with a little extra ingredient from the side. I've made great stuff in the past, and some of my friends and cohorts and whatnot say, and students even, I get it from students all the time, like, man, everything you play is so fucking incredible. I was like, no, it's everything I play. All of us go shit at least once or twice a day. We just don't share it. So
unless that's your OnlyFans. People are making money off of it.
Majority of us, proctologists excluded, the process of artistic creation and just doing it every day is the thing. Like, I recognize not everything I make is awesome. It's impossible. But if you're just always making it, and when you pick the things out to share, everyone's impressed. It's like, well, you guys didn't hear all the whack shit I did.
Yeah.
I didn't share it.
Yeah.
And
having enough output that you can come in and choose. Like, what's Thriller initially have? Like 40 songs on it?
Yeah, right.
And they whittled it down. It's like, that's what greatness takes, is a lot of shit that's almost there, and then taking your children to the chopping block and finding out what's going to be important.
And I tell you, Bootsy really, he does, as a producer, he's one of the best things. And Bootsy can play bass guitar, he can sing, he can write, he's fucking hysterical, right? His double entendre for writing is even loving to death as he's at grandpa age is even funnier in some ways.
Yeah. The innuendos are richer because you wouldn't expect that to be the voice of it.
It's just, and I'm sure, people's tastes, whatnot. But his perspective has always been, he can take, I've seen him take great people and just pull better out of them. And when I say great, I'm talking about all the famous people that are incredible musicians that just want to hang with him because he's such a fucking character.
Yeah.
Right? And he's made such crazy things across such a spectrum of stuff. I mean, to go from JB to P-Funk to Maggot Brain stuff and Buckethead,
And then in 2021, like, what's the feeling when Silk Sonic happens?
We knew as soon as they sent stuff that was going to be retarded. We knew immediately, because we could tell with just the rough tracks. He and I were just like, yo, this shit's going to it's going to hit.
And not only did it hit, but for a kid that's from Cincinnati, that like the more the more I dig my nose into what needs to be my shit and how I feel like I'm putting my time in, the more I can feel resonant to the things you're wearing right now. Locals only. I love this. I know where I'm from. You're not going to find me in a different city claiming something I'm not, because there's too much here to try to take part in. So when you see Bootsy is, again, master of the universe, for the greatest pop album to come out in the last 2 decades, there's a reminder here that not only has he gotten better with time, but he is indiscernible from the movement of music up to this point. You know, he's a part of it in a way that you can't understand. And it's not like he's had incessant hits that remind you of that. It's the way that he's in all of this.
It's his persona, his understanding of art, the way he produces music. He's phenomenal at it. The way and it's all emotion. It's all following the contour. You know, I get into modes where I'm like, all right, we're working on this, bridge section, so we're gonna get 4 bars before the bridge and 4 bars after, and we're gonna fucking loop this shit forever and figure out exactly which pieces aren't right and who needs to go here and play with pannings and textures and whatnot to get this part of the song right. And sometimes he just be like, I can't do it. I'm like, what? He's like, I can't listen to it. Go back. So I'll go back like 16, 24 bars and play from the chorus before through the whole, because he's tracking the emotional contour. It's not, sometimes you can't take it out of context like that, right? And I'm good at working modular like that. But he really tracks the whole theme, this emotional crest of a song, and knows where it's like the music isn't even really mapped out. It just says verse for 16 bars. And then there's a section that changes, which we've decided is going to be kind of chorus right now. And he's already hearing where this bump is and where you put a flower and where the turn is and we need a full pause here. Yeah. Big rest, everybody. I don't know. Is it quarter, is it half? Sorry, a whole bar that way,
Yeah.
And he's got to count everything. And so it's because he's immersed in that emotional, the travel of the song. And it's none of the pieces exist without the others. And I think, his ability to recognize and do that with music, and these artists to meet him and feel that happen, changes them. And that's why he remains like every badass musician's first choice. You name it, when they come through town, they want to come out to his house.
Yeah.
And the amount of people I've hung out with and picked up, backstage to come out for a quick 2-hour session to go and do what, what I mean? It's crazy when I think back on it.
Yeah.
All of the baddest folks,
And to earn that place of, to earn that seat next to a guy like that, and to cross that intimacy threshold of, this is William, but I'm introducing you to Bootsy. Like that's where the line between what most people know as work becoming your friends and family to work becoming family.
Yeah, and the Bootzilla brand is very oriented that way, for better and for worse, as all families are.
Yeah.
So and I enjoy my time with them within that umbrella of love and respect that we all have for each other, because we've all seen some, in the 22 years I've been there, we've had a couple interesting things happen, some health stuff obviously, and people passing with his mom and his brother, and Bernie Worrell, and a bunch of people that were really tight to him. And so it's, I think in order for it to be honest, it has to have a little bit of family dysfunction.
That's the most human version of it.
Yeah.
If you keep it too buttoned up, then it starts to feel like the legal route that you decided not to take.
Yeah, it's country club instead of, a nightclub.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to get the funk. You got to get dirty to get the funk, I think, is something is something around what Bootsy might say about that.
You got some great one-liners in here today, brother. I'm going to be listening back to this and framing some things on a wall.
You won't be the first. You know, he sits down and most days is asking me to repeat myself, and then he writes down the things that I say, puts the date, and he's got notebooks and notebooks. He could pull them up and just say, yeah, Toby said this crazy shit on this day, and then we put this in the song, and he said this other thing the other day, and
yeah.
I killed him with this new one. Oh, it's hysterical.
Don't share it. It'll come out in the right place. Yeah,
it's gonna come out in the record. But
so the Power of the One opening intro, where you're taking that iconic clip, is that something that you did, or was that an idea that someone else had brought to the table?
No, that was something that somebody else brought to the table. That was you talking about the video?
Well, the incorporation of the video into a full-fledged track that then brought in the album.
God, what did that song start as?
And no need to pull out a particular moment, but like...
No, well, what it is many of these songs, you know, for this last record that we just finished, it's going to be called Album of the Year, 75 minutes worth of music on it as it stands, right? Huge catalog of stuff. The bucket that we pulled out of for those 18 songs was, like you said, it was like 40 something. So what happens to those other 40 well, they get bumped, and that was half of the leftovers that didn't get finished from the last record. And then he remembers that thing he started years ago that was really cool, but this thing was whack on it. So he's like, pulls this back, and then I I'm pulling stuff out sometimes that are unreleased sessions, unfinished things that predate my time there. Right? So these are things that might be 30 years old.
In a technical facility of this kind of thing, any recommendations that you would make to artists in terms of retaining the ingredients of their catalog for later use? Are you deep on the redundancy drives thing, or is it just have a thumb drive and have an idea, or... Because that shit's scary.
It is tough, and the truth is there are two types of people in the world, those that have lost shit and those that will.
Deep. That's a great professor quote.
I'm telling you, it's the truth. And it could be your job and your career, and it might not even been your fault.
And coming to terms with that aspect of life of...
Did some shit. Bootsy and I still, to this day, when we talk about really short, really quick, and we're both really concise. It's like, remember that time you got gang raped by elephants? It's like, oh yeah, I remember it, but we'll leave it alone. We'll just kind of just keep it moving.
Yeah.
Because it's it was definitely a sore spot, and it was right at the wrong time for a record. And I was torn. I was actually out with Freakbase. We were out in Cali doing a run of shows, and I got the SOS call. And I'm like, just don't touch anything till I get back. We did everything. You know what the clean rooms are. There's like 4 of them in the U.S. It's like where they send damaged hard drives for the FBI and shit. Mm-hmm. Like blown up hard. It's like where they really save stuff. All the vacuum rooms with the white static.
Yeah, looking at the guy with the rubber gloves.
We sent a hard drive there. That's how bad it was. And what I got back was just like fractal mincemeat version of, and it was a complete write-off, and it was about a year and a half worth of record.
Yeah,
that's the biggest one, and I wasn't even a part of it.
You're just part of the salvage team, and
well, there's no salvage. It was a write-off. But I tried.
Yeah.
I mean, we went and tasked, and it was a couple weeks of just terrible anxiety. But to answer your question, what I teach is you're not backed up until you have 3. There's the one you work on, then there's your backup, and then there's the third one that's physically at a different place. So there's like your computer drive that you work on. Then there's your not solid state, but physical, old school, slower drive that you keep. It could be solid state if you're rich, whatever. Yeah. Second one in the firebox. And then third one offsite
That feels like the only way.
That's a pro. That's what I've been told by professionals. What do I have? I've got close to 30 small external hard drives scattered across a basement, and some of them are backed up here and some of them are backed up there.
And utilizing child labor like an adult. My kids are well armed, okay? No one's taking this shit. But what a great segue into your intellectual property and what that's worth, whether it's the idea or the lyric on a sheet of a one-liner or the actual vocal take from this day, number one, not number three, not the comp, number one. What is the value of that? It's immeasurable.
Yeah.
So as it relates to what we pull from now and what artificial intelligence can make happen from that, like it's starting to get really lofty about what's yours, what's it, and how do we get it. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a day in time where you can tell the AI, hey, here's the mincemeat of the hard drive. Get it out. And it's going to fill in cracks that you didn't know. It's going to try to make it seamless. And what's different there?
My 20-page thesis paper for my undergrad was, paraphrasing, something about the importance of filtering information in the future. Like quantify, qualify, validate. And I was saying something about, search engines, but their responses and how important that filter step is in general dissemination of ideas and communicating. But how small it is of a step in the actual coding and creation of it. That it was an inverse relationship between how simple it was in the box and how important it was for people. Mm-hmm. And I see the same thing coming with AI art and creation. And, I have a friend who just said he started a new production company that is all AI.
So like a mastering studio, a mix studio,
background graphic, poetry raps. Whatever. I mean, everybody's heard, the songs.
Well, I think Tyler Perry had a similar thing where he was building this massive production studio for film and movies, and he pulled the plug on a $100 million, $200 million project because he said the money should go towards that. Because we're going to take your essence, Mr. Eddie Murphy, and we're going to move it over 3%, and we're going to make a new version of this, Who
did they just buy?
What a weird statement that is, too. Oh, yeah. Okay, if anyone's going to sell it immediately, it was Gene Simmons. He was like, you can't take my OJ trademark, but my face, yours. My kneecaps in my younger days,
you can holographically project us
forever.
In perpetuity.
Yes, and you can pay me off of that in my grave, okay? Yep. You can drop your crypto straight down to my bucks.
My kids.
Yes, exactly. And my kids' and whatnot. And what is it like to lock down a deal that does mean Kiss in perpetuity? One of the longest lasting, most iconic rock bands. Like, you want to talk about character development versus who the person is?
Hey, I'm sure Bootsy took some... those two things don't exist in a bubble.
For sure. And people don't look at other genres and see shock rock the way they should. Mm-hmm. It's like when you look at the modern world of rap music, you got to think of Alice Cooper taking his own head off and getting banned from every city. It's like NWA doesn't happen without that.
Yeah, right.
And there's something we all can take about when you show people something gruesome in the attempt to show them something beautiful, you fulfilled both sides of the coin, But when you just try to give them something nice and shiny and you don't show them the heinousness of how you got there, it's like, I don't really know what you're talking about,
Right. Where do these vegetables come from?
Dude, I'm telling you, the vegetables are going to be made in the lab.
I think they mostly are.
Dun, dun, dun. Not the kind of vegetables we're talking, not in this beautiful state.
Yeah, that's true.
But
that's true.
There's this weird thing approaching where we act like it's oncoming into us. And it's like, it is us. in the same way that we're talking about the encoding and decoding of ideas, the filter you put it through, what is the input and the output process? It's like, this is a mirror that we're just taking the smudges off of. And one day it's going to be exact, and one day it's going to be enhanced, and then another day it's going to be collective and exponential. And yes, it's something to fear, but if we take it right now with the philosophical approach, it's like, how do you work on your own search engine optimization of when I sit down to write an idea and I think the filter is tailored the right way and end up choking this song to death before it becomes something beautiful because the filter was too tight, and it's like, and now you have no results. You're on page 5 and you don't know what you're looking at on there. But in reality, like, you know, touching on disassociates of any means, whatever your preferred mechanism is for it, zooming out and opening the lens for this dragon to come in, whether it's robust and girthy or whether it's a slender, long idea, you're just playing catch here. And you got to know when to take your hands off and just collect, or chop his head off, because this thing is going to take you out with it.
Yeah. You know, that's really well said. The greatest danger I have found in come to realize for me recently in the past, 10, 15 years is because I have been just because I've been Bootsy's head engineer for the past, most sound dudes don't enjoy that consistency of work. And if you do commercials, right?
You do something a little more regular.
I mean, and way less fun. I know I've done a couple commercials.
Yeah.
I mean,
imagine
the cool ones aren't that fun. Those people that write them and make them, most of them are fucking stiff.
Yeah. But if I watch Seinfeld, I think about that guy writing yet another bass line, yet another bass, and it's like, man, that Casio's getting burnt.
Right. Being on such a self-sustaining little island has been great for the Galapagos Islands, but it creates a distinction and a hard communication jump between there and Africa, right? There in North America. So I've been kind of isolated on an island in a way, production-wise, which has allowed me to do a lot of crazy shit because of the caliber and the expectation and the fact that Bootsy doesn't want normal. He likes me because I'm a goner, and most of my ideas are, he constantly says, you make me look normal, like I'm the crazy one. So he constantly blames me for, maybe, every now and then we go too far on stuff. Or I'm good for taking my DJ approach to recycling art to a place where at that release stage draws way more attention than 10,000 small records I make for a scratch thing.
Yes. And
you might get the cease and desist and some other letters and shit like that.
It's a dangerous game.
It is. And, I've made a couple mistakes that cost a few dollars.
Well, that makes me really interested, though, in the Silk Sonic conversation once again, because the era of music that they are pulling from for stylistic approach is where you get the recyclables. It's where you use good enough materials that one day you can reuse. And when I see that in music history, it tells me that the well is not dry, but we have begun digging for better water. Exactly. We started to find that it's starting to get a little rusty
glacial
down.
Water now.
Yes, exactly. We needed to go somewhere else with this. And as people start leaning on technology, whether it's the drum sounds that are pre-programmed into Logic, whatever it is, you need to go for the thumbprint and not the stock. It's like you talked about with the church. You can make a big room sound small, but you need that big room. You need to find out what are the intangibles that are going to make you sound like yourself, whether it's your mom and dad's basement or the gear that you have decided is going to make work.
Right.
If there's one thing that all the people that because of you and Tim and Chris the folks that I've gotten to talk to that are big brother figures to me that I ask how and where you go to for these things, and it's like, you don't got to claim me, but I'm claiming you. You know, I'm coming to you for shit. The thing they all say about you that's funniest to me is like, dude, he will make an empty pack of applesauce sound like the best compressor you've ever found. Like, I don't know how he makes this bullshit sound the way it does, but he doesn't care what it is.
Right.
And it's like, that is the sought after characteristic. You keep buying Neve plugins, you know?
I grew up with secondhand broken stereo equipment, man. You know, we were, everybody had a tough life. I wanted to play saxophone. We couldn't afford a saxophone. So they're like, oh, you play drums. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool too. And I get to the drum class, and it's all they do is give you 2 sticks, and then they sit on one chair and turn the other chair around and beat on a chair.
Paradiddle.
Wasn't even a practice pad. Fucking drum set. It wasn't even a practice pad. You're just playing on an empty plastic seat from the 70s in front of you. And that was just enough to, like, get me interested in rhythms and stuff. But there's not a lot of sensibility. My rhythm is one of my favorite tools, and growing up with limited technology, I was quick to make anything happen. So in high school, before you could go and buy a DJ mixer, cats that would come over to my house and knew me, my close friends, knew that I took a light switch, gutted a old AM FM stereo, like, house entertainment receiver, gutted the electronics, put a phonograph preamp in it, bent the faceplate so it was like an eye kind of, put the light switch on the front as an on-off thing for the turntable, put a amp and another tape deck on top of it to hold the whole thing down. It had like a Radio Shack realistic 5-channel mixer with no crossfader, and this was my first shit. I had that. The Tascam 4-track, the Porta Studio, and then I had a turntable that was belt driven, and the belt broke, so I had a rubber band that broke, and I stapled the rubber band together. And I had a reel-to-reel machine. In order to make loops, I would record onto this reel-to-reel machine, take it to the splicing table, find the spots that I wanted, rock the reels until I got to the kick drums, cut it and loop them together, and I made original loops. And there would be loops going around the bedpost, around this thing, and it'd come in and be like a 20-foot analog tape loop. And in order to speed it up and slow it down, I put my thumb on the capstan or spin the fucking thing to get it to go faster. So the stories that people are saying about me, like, oh, he would take anything and make a fucking thing, which is true.
Yeah.
It is true. And I've had to make records with less than desirable things, but I constantly remind myself, one of the best records we ever made was on a shitty-ass 4-track in a garage. And the reason it sounded rad is because it was the absolute perfect texture, tone, and capture of what we were doing, how we felt, where we were. Great records have been made with less than the good stuff. I've been fortunate enough, especially the past couple of years, to see, now some of these sessions are starting to make their way around certain circles, right? So like the original JB sessions, and I got a collection of some cool shit and these are the unshareables that I've just been able to see. I used to get really blown away by seeing Drew Bledsoe's Dre's engineer sessions. Anytime I got something when I was like with tech, and I'd like see one of these big boys, I'd be like, oh my God, I thought I knew what I was doing in Pro Tools, and I see like one of these dudes' sessions, I'm like, oh shit. Like it's that I thought it was 2%, and he just showed me I was only at 75%.
And so when you get something like that, you're a student of the game. How do you start to qualify, pull things away from that in terms of the intellectual how-to?
Well, I'm smart enough where I've always told myself, every piece of equipment is built, or in software, is built by 2 or 3 people, roughly as smart as me and you. I can figure this out. It might take me some time, but the thing was built by 2 or 3 people that were roughly as smart as us. So
within that, figuring out what it does and why it does it, how you use it is so different. And I think that's the weirdest thing about you, it might be because you probably got electrocuted 19 times, 20 times while doing this. You sound more reckless than I ever knew.
My Instagram, I think the top line is on my little description thing, I think I wrote, putting new things to better use. And I can't think of a more concise way to express how I feel about my opportunity in music and the timing of it within art, technology, and everything. I mean, if you just look at the general parabolic representation of technology and kind of the accessibility of art, democratization of information and ideas, there's not, it's either the last time to be born or I like to prefer that this is just like the apex. It's like there'll be stories told about the generation that knew how to do both. Your grandparents grew up, if they're still alive, without phones. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is like late 18, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's like, you went from black lung coal to we'll be on Mars next year in somebody's lifetime.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Never been the case. So I do think it's a unique opportunity, and I think art stands to express some of that massive gap growth and try to make sense. There's so much in there in that period to make art from.
Yeah.
To figure to make sense of.
Oh, I think what's really cool about that too is the medium that you and I prefer of music has always been invisible, start to finish. It's like it is the vibrations of the air around you in this unique place that you can only feel, but you cannot see, you cannot taste, you can barely touch. But you've seen how it's changed from the input to the output in a really dramatic way. So merging those two together for that authentic sense of vibration and resonance and human interfacing with it, that's what you retain. That is part of your special thumbprint that now when you make everything in the box, you wonder what's missing. It's like it may be the infidelity of the tape that you were using. It might be the way that your kick was not on level surface.
Yeah,
you know?
it was out of phase.
Yeah, exactly. The sex appeal is bizarre.
I will say this. I mentioned a couple names that were really, I've never had the chance to meet Rick Rubin. I just very influenced by his work. Worked with Chris Lord Alge, and was very influenced with what he did for our art. I did a bunch of years of stuff for Is What. Sometimes playing drums, sometimes scratching with, always mixing and mastering their stuff. Always mixing. One of the early records, Napoleon was up in New York and he got Bob Powers to do the mastering for it. Napoleon calls me and I pick up the phone. Like, oh, what up, Nap? He's like, oh, we're up here, New York, do the mastering. The guy who's doing it has got a question for you. It's here, Bob. And he picks up the phone. He's like, hey, this is Bob Powers. I'm like, oh shit. And he says, I shit you not. Napoleon still remembers this. Shout out to my boy Napo. Dude says, hey man, did you mix this in the box? I said, yeah. He said, you should break your arm patting yourself on the back. He said, I just wanted to make sure that what this dude was telling me was the truth, that you did do this all in Pro Tools. I said, yeah, I did. It's all software plugins, no outboard gear at all. Mixing on Event 2020 speakers. Fucking crack shack in Northside.
Is that the moment for you where it was like, not only am I meant to do this, but I am taking my vocation?
It was a major source of validation for me, and because it was totally unexpected at that point.
Yeah.
I did not know that that's where that phone call was going to go. You know what I mean? So like 40 seconds later, I'm like hanging up like, whoa, what just happened? Like,
and that was at the Room and About space on Cherry Street?
Correct.
Man, I worked in there for 2 years. And,
did you? Yeah.
And I had a musical divorce, as one might put it, and it was such a learning lesson. But it was a place that I really spent a lot of hours trying to say, like, what is it that I'm doing here? What does it matter to me? What does it matter to others? And how do we get from the start point to, are they living or are they dead at the end of this? Did we pull the life out of this, or do we put life into this? And it gives me.
A lot of people been down there in that little area.
But it gives me some affirmation. I'm looking through the window of what a maniac drilled through to make this kind of thing happen, man. It's like,
oh, you were in that side. See, I had 1, 2, 3 rooms when you walk up the stairs on the left side. So we had that whole first section, which was pretty big. One big room, and then an office, and then a kitchen, which is where we had fridge and microwave and drums, because it was all wood halfway up the walls, like wood paneling up the walls. Sound really flush. And then we got the other side, which was the other side of it, which was 2 more rooms and another bathroom. So at one point I had 1, 2, 3. We had 4 Pro Tools studios just in those. Right as you walk up the stairs, either side, we just ran all of that shit.
That is wild.
And me and my homie Ian Ian Herzog, who was in Animal Crackers still. MC, beatbox, guitarist. He's like multi-instrumentalist. He and I started that smaller room together, and we were the ones that cut that plaster fucking hunk out of the wall. I cut that room is where I did all the drums for Freakbass's Junkyard Waltz record in that room.
That room had some effect on itself, man. It sounded really lively. There's glass windows on the back. With that, you can barely see the daylight, but it's there, through, baby. You know?
Yeah, that place was a trip, man. We were there for a while. Top Cats most Wednesday nights paid for all that.
Goddamn.
We did Top Cats for 7 years.
As someone that's really made noise in this city and is, whether you like it or not, a big part of the sound that now comes out of the city through your students, through your personal output, through just the resonance of your work. Is Cincinnati always the home for you, or do you still feel like there's another place for you to be?
Cincinnati is a great place to live, to raise kids. What's the quote from
Mark Twain?
Yeah.
10 years behind?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm waiting for the apocalypse.
It's pretty much perfect. That's, I was born in Connecticut. I would never live in New York. I would never live in Los Angeles. Quickly, Austin fits that bill too. There's a thing about that level of take myself so fucking seriously that I don't want to have anything to do with it. Chicago is an okay city. Nashville, kind of the same thing. It's just, I like to be a medium-sized koi in small pond. It's much more preferable.
I don't think that accurately fits your description, but
it's a safe. It's a much safer. I have great friends that are really successful that have moved away from Cincy, and they come back and they're like, their new partners or whatnot are like, what the fuck are we doing living in Brooklyn? For $300,000, you get a whole house.
Yeah.
And a yard.
10 minutes from downtown.
I mean, you can walk to a park.
Yeah. You get a neighbor that doesn't seem like they want to spit on you when you walk by. It's
right. Or spill shit from upstairs on you.
Dude, that's festive. I mean, that's why you have kids, so you can water balloon them on the way out. It's like, why is a master bedroom on the front of the house? Because I am the apex predator here. It's like,
I want easy shots.
Exactly. When you go to prom, I'm going to ruin your night. You know what I'm saying?
I also recognize, and I've had to tell my students that I'm the unicorn. There's not a bunch of jobs like this. There's one, there was at one point, do you feel, Frampton had his house over in.
What a great description. Have you ever heard the story of how he got that talk box?
No.
I'm pretty sure that Jeff Beck was the original user of the talk box. and I feel like he either found it backstage, but whoever bought that house, it's Dudley Taft.
Okay.
Dudley Taft told me, he's like, dude, if I take down walls, I find more of Peter Frampton's pedals. Like, he just left shit all over the place.
That place.
Yeah, it's like, so I wonder if Peter just found this thing one day.
Well, when I graduated school, so early 2000s, I went and done a bunch of, this is when I did a bunch of tracks with Kanye West. First time I'd met him when he was just beat making. And the crew that I was engineering for from here, we went up to New York to do the mixes. And what's this? My memory does get a little spotty.
So, there's a lot in there, brother.
Yeah, that would have been 2004 or 5. It was Zarnock was the group, and this was Kanye before he had his accident, before his jaw got wired shut, before he was rapping, and I'd met Rhymefest, his good buddy, who wrote a bunch of that shit. Who was like his ghost pen for a bunch of stuff.
That's a wild place to be, and I think the weirdest thing is watching rocks you through make ripples, and watching other people throw rocks and seeing what that does in the world.
Yeah, right.
And people try to quantify, like they try to affirm themselves by the results of what they did. Like, again, like that start and stop point. Like, it's a big question of what's it gonna do and what's that gonna mean to me. And if you don't have that refined for when you're done with it and what feels like life, that thing will eat you alive, for sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's failure or success, they will both eat you alive.
Yeah. Yep. I've seen, good people get chewed up and spit up. I've seen bad people make it through just because they're dicks. But luckily the cool ones seem to gravitate. That's one of the things I would say is my greatest suit, is that I'm reminded that people appreciate the fact that I'm just a cool hang in the studio. Many people will take the second chair who's a cool person over the first chair asshole. Almost every musician will take the person that's maybe a little bit less technically gifted, or maybe doesn't have the accolades or the track listing or the Discogs trail of breadcrumbs to follow, but they'll take cool over dick face almost every time, because no one wants to have their art ruined. No one wants to have poison put in the love. That's the last thing they want. So, I wasn't the smartest, wasn't the best student, didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't always win everywhere, you know what I mean? Didn't always outdo everybody else's versions of shit, but I was fucking cooler. Mostly all the time. Yeah. And that, I think, gave me most of the opportunities that I've had. My work ethic and talent, and maybe the slight psychosis and gray matter combination that I have, has allowed me to stay there. You know what I mean? To maintain that those opportunities.
Yeah. No, I think that segues well into my last question before we wrap this up. There's a balance between content and ambitious that we all sit on. Where are you at now, and what do you think is the best place to be?
I am 3/4 ambitious right now, but I think content is the place to be. There is a point where that drive, that ambition, that desire undermines itself. The grass isn't fucking greener. It just has to feel good under your feet right now. It's, you know what I mean? And there's no sense. We talked about having the ticket, being there, and being bags packed and good, right? So when people do get that, or, you see it, and I I hope you're not as jealous as I am of some things, but I see things and I'm like, this person is terrible. There's real, and there's a lot of, especially genre-wise, I don't understand things and I don't question it. I'm like, I just don't get it. But to really not be jealous of somebody else's success, to honestly be happy and watch other people who may have been at one point pitted against you, or and that's happened to me. I've got friends now that we grew up where everybody had us wanting to fight each other and battle. We'll get you guys to battle each other because we were the white DJs in the city. And now we're all great friends and think it's hysterical. It's like not divide and conquer. It's conquer by dividing.
That's wild. That's a crazy quote right there. It's like, how do you delegate well in a world where we all want to get things done in a big, important way? It's like, take the big, important thing and divide it and get down to it. As it becomes the buttery side of this interview, I think the things that you do in our city, in your personal art, and for artists like me in the community, is more than inspiring. It puts fuel on the fire that people didn't know could burn that hot. And ever since the last session you've sent me, I've been trying to figure out my own thumbprint. I've been trying to figure out my own time. I'm going to come back to you with more needs at some point. But getting to sit down with you today has put a level of joyous mania back in my head.
Oh, cool, man.
That's going to ruin being at the BMV today when I try to change my address. Okay, I'm going to be sitting there just fucking shaking.
Go
that
to
might because
the one off Red Bank, man. There seems to never be anybody there.
I got to go to Kentucky for this, man. I'm about to be a Kentuckian, which I'm not that proud of.
That's cool.
I bought a house where I did because
my wife was born in Kentucky.
But you got a convert, okay? I'm about to be a convert, bro. And I don't know what that means over there, but they're not gonna like my sport mode sandals. I'll tell you that much.
No, you're probably right. It's more of a barefoot.
Yeah, straight up. Well, brother, anything that you'd like to promote on the way out?
Yeah, Bootsy's new record is going to be rad. There's already a single out, which is cool. It's got me doing different stuff on a couple of songs, which I'm proud of. I got some good credits on some of those things. I just finished a EP with this group I've been playing with the past year, Weathered Feather, which is a combination of, I describe it as like something between Grateful Dead and Fish meets Alice in Chains and maybe Africa Bambaataa, just because it's me playing drums.
Goddamn.
Pretty cool, kind of country mountain picking, but heavy like my style.
Cool.
It's got a really, to lean back into it, it's got a pretty unique profile as far as sonic, motivations or kind of influences. And I think it's, we're going to try to hit some of, I got turned on to some of the, how do we say, market availability in some of the jam band-ish scenes through playing with Freakbass. Because all of my shit has been like, more polished pop rock and like straightforward hip-hop turntablism shit. So making some tour visits through some of these festivals in the summers and whatnot got me kind of turned on to a vibe. And I'd worked with another artist, and we did a few songs, and he came back and this is the coolest, best thing I've ever done ever. Do you want to do some more songs? And a couple guys moved back, and then I was like, yeah. I wanted to start playing drums again just to kind of stay healthy. I tell my wife it's cheaper than a gym membership. So I've been playing drums again this past year, and I just finished an EP with them. And Weathered Feather, it's got 5 songs, and it's on all of the stuffs.
Cool.
So that just came out. We're going to be hopefully this summer picking up some gigs with some people and try to raise some notoriety and visibilities. And then more immediately, Animal Crackers are hosting the DMC Regional DJ Battles Thursday, June 27th at Odd Fellows downtown.
Goddamn.
So that's our heritage from winning the U.S. finals years ago and going to London for the World Championships, making friends with that whole DJ culture. And then as historic U.S. champions, we're sanctioned to host the thing in the first place. So we are doing that. So we're looking forward to that coming up here in just a few weeks. So.
Well, brother, anytime you ever want to come back and chat, please do. If not, I'll come banging on your door to make sure you come back and chat.
I have a feeling that's a promise, not a threat.
I prefer to threaten you at the end of this. Yeah, that's the Weekly Wave, everybody. Thanks for watching the unbelievable Tobot. Peace.
Shout out, y'all.